It's time we give back. Sow a seed and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else in life. Give back. Let's give back.
Welcome to this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform, where we showcase urban superheroes here in the Bronx and around the world. I am your host, Hosea James Givan II, and we have two very special guests today, Gina Parker and Ginger McKnight-Chavers. How are you doing today?
Doing great. My husband would be doing better if we added Collins to the Gina Parker piece.
Oh, my bad. Gina
That's okay.
Parker Collins.
There you
Let
go.
me tell you why. Let me tell you why I missed that. Because I had a conversation with Rachel a couple days ago. I said, I got to reach Gina Collins. She said, who? And it's Gina Collins Parker.
No, it's Gina Parker Collins.
Gina Parker Collins.
There we go.
Gina Parker's Collins. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, well, I had the pleasure of meeting Gina. I guess it's been about 7 years ago, about 7 years ago. Well, yeah, 6 or 7 years ago. She runs an amazing organization called RISE. My daughter is a beneficiary of this experience. And just tell us about your organization.
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, thank you for having us
Absolutely.
on the show today. It is about giving back. And so RISE stands for Resources in Independent School Education. Along with you, I am an independent school parent, and the moment I enrolled is one thing to apply and be aspirational, and then there's another moment when you get in, you enroll, and you're like, what the heck did I get myself into, right? Particularly as a family of color, a black family specifically, in historically and predominantly white institutions, kindergarten through grade 12. So once I enrolled and I had that moment of what school was? Oh, at Riverdale. So Riverdale Country School, right here in the Bronx.
Right.
Both of my children, in the Boogie Down Bronx, both attended Riverdale. But I just knew the moment I enrolled that I could not leave my child alone on this journey. I needed to be that parent advocate. And part of my advocacy, and to that point of giving back, was to make sure that more black and brown families were aware of independent school education as an opportunity, as well as having the access to explore that and to dream big and envision it for themselves, and then support with the application and, of course, the enrollment piece. How do we navigate this space in culturally relevant ways, in ways that socially and emotionally our children are taken care of, and at the same time leveraging that space and getting to meet people like a Ginger Shavers
McKnight-Chavers.
See, there I go. We've been doing this
out before the end of the show. We're going to get these names right.
Yes. Other parent leaders who are also, taking full advantage of the resources of our independent schools, but at the same time giving back, making sure that other families have opportunities to have this type of educational experience.
Fantastic. And I got to say, when we went to your event at Sarah Lawrence, where you featured several schools, but the one I gravitated to was Greenwich Academy, where Rebecca actually attends, and she's had such a wonderful experience. And I was just sharing with you off camera how this summer she went to Scotland with her school, as one of the experiences as a sophomore, freshman going into her sophomore year. She's traveling internationally. Just amazing. Let's talk about y'all's relationship.
Yes.
Well, we met, I think, as fellow independent school parents. My daughter attended a Bronx independent school as well, but
give names.
Horace Mann School.
Shout them out.
Shout out Horace Mann School in Riverdale. And interestingly, there are these networks of parents of color that are supportive of one another. And because, as you said, getting in the door is the first part of the process, but really navigating the environment, making sure your kid keeps their wits and their confidence about them, as well as to advocate for them sometimes when they need it. And actually, it was through being a Horace Mann parent that the head of school there invited me to join the board of a nonprofit organization that serves public school students, actually, primarily in the Bronx. And we had a few students from Upper Manhattan, but 90% of our students come from the Bronx. And it's called Summer on the Hill. And it was it's set on the Horace Mann campus. Horace Mann generously provides a lot of resources, as well as campus and other resources for our program. But it's a you start in third grade, where we get recommendations from public schools throughout the Bronx and Upper Manhattan on students that are promising and who would benefit from some extra educational enrichment that they're not necessarily getting in their local school. And having these well-off institutions with these beautiful campuses and all these resources, I was kind of both surprised because it's off reputation for Horace Mann, but really pleased that they were involved in a nonprofit effort to give back to the community around them and allow other students who attend public school to have some taste of a Horace Mann experience through a 4-week summer program, educational enrichment program. And I can later talk more about the type of courses we offer, as well as...
Now is as good a time as any.
Oh, sure. A lot of different kind of classes that help strengthen their core learning, but expand it. So we add on things like financial literacy, engineering, media literacy, there's arts programs. They have access to athletic and fitness facilities that they may not have at their old schools, pools and tennis courts and things like that.
Nice.
Soccer fields, as well as during a Saturday program during the school year. And we start, unlike other educational enrichment programs in the area, it was critical for us to start at third grade because that's that critical time where you start to lose students.
Right.
And this keeps them engaged. I want to say almost all, if not all, of our students end up going to college. After 8th grade, there's a smaller high school program because a number of our students place into independent schools, parochial schools, and the magnet New York City public schools. And we provide counseling to the parents throughout the experience. If they're applying for those schools, helping them navigate the process. We have college counseling. We traditionally, pre-COVID, did college tours, which hasn't quite come back yet, but that should be coming back soon. And because most of our kids will be first generation college, and there are a lot of fears about costs and things like that we can help the parents navigate that and allay a lot of those fears because there are less barriers than they think. Once their kids are academically well-trained, there are far less barriers than they think for the kids to go ahead and go on to college.
Fantastic.
And, so it's a great program, and we're really proud of it. And I chair the board now.
Awesome, awesome. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Jason, let's go see your room.
That's not right.
How was it? Is it good?
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Welcome back to this segment of Ignite, Empower, Transform. Again, I am your host, Hosea James Givan II, and we're having a very delightful conversation. You know, one of the things that I've become really sensitive to, I used to be a dean at an elementary school here in the Bronx and a guidance counselor. And watching my daughter get into the school that she got into, one of the things that we were able to do was provide her the additional tutoring that is necessary when you take these standardized tests, so she would qualify and she would do well. But we had the resources to do that, right? And that's one of the main disadvantages that our children have in getting into the schools, getting into these programs. And I'm wondering, what can we do, or what are you suggesting, how our kids can take more advantage of those types of programs?
Sure. I think it starts at home, really.
Absolutely.
It starts with parents who are willing to invest that time with their children, engaging them in conversations, scaffolding those conversations, and then dreaming big, right? If you have a vision for education for your children, you will then begin to seek out resources. So oftentimes, many families are starting off with what they know they don't want, right? As opposed to what it is that they want. But if you're able to even identify, you know what, I envision a better academic situation for my children, invariably, the universe has a way of just providing opportunities for you. It will come your way, and you have to begin to leverage that. And leverage it in very cost-effective ways. There are ways that you don't have to, spend a ton of money to be able to access the resources that you need to make sure that your children are prepared to compete. But I do believe that starts at home. The amount of reading that you're doing, right? The amount of conversations and engagement that you're having in, with different organizations, family organizations that you can be a part of. I think it's a cultural thing. We have a lot of different cultures who are practicing for the test.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how necessary that is to practice for the test. You're going to be missing a lot of other things, or that's your sole purpose, is just preparing for the test. Because oftentimes when you get to the point of applying, and I've spoken to many admissions directors, we're not just looking for students who can just take a test.
Right.
And there's more to it.
Balanced.
Well-rounded, balanced, yes.
Yeah. Okay. But, I think as I talk about this, Stuyvesant and Bronx High School of Science, Horace Mann, Rye Country Day, Greenwich Academy, those are places where you're in a network. See, when Rebecca went to Greenwich Academy, and she's going from the 4th grade to the 5th grade, I'm explaining to her that you are representing a community, and you have a responsibility to help to transfer resources back to your community. Right. And through the network that you are about to get into, she goes to school with John D. Rockefeller's great-great-granddaughter, and they're like good friends. So the network that at these schools, and it's just how we can better access and how we can create more opportunity. You talk about parenting, right? And one of my things has always been, there's so much criticism about the education system, but the education system is really designed to have parent involvement.
Absolutely.
And your parents have to be involved. But unfortunately for our community, we're not getting that kind of parent participation. They talk about it takes a village, right? So now I'm talking about the extended village, right? Because we know that the parents are not. And so much of what we do as an organization is based on the fact that we recognize that parents are not doing the things that need to be done. But we still have to figure out a way in which we can kind of bridge these gaps.
I believe it's meeting parents where they are as well. So one of the reasons RISE has been so effective in supporting access and application and admission and enrollment in independent schools is because we talk to the power of parents, their level of leadership one of the things that independent schools want, and you know this too, Ginger, they want parent involvement. And there's so many ways to become engaged. But I think for parents of color in particular, we really show up in these independent schools because we know we cannot leave our children alone. Right? I mean, we must be there and show them how to advocate and navigate in spaces where they are among the numerical minority. So RISE is very much, our target market, really, in addition to the children, our scholars really are the parents. That's who we speak to. We empower them, we inspire them, and we remind them of who they are, right? And I always say we bring them in community. Like we add to an independent school community with our talents, our gifts, and we belong as part of our inheritance.
I'm sorry. I was going to say one thing about a program like ours, and there are other nonprofit programs that probably do this, but I mean, we're training the kids, and they're excelling, and they're really engaged and dynamic. But we do, and it's a requirement of our program, the parent engagement, and we do help them navigate, and the test prep is part of our of what we cover and the services and resources we provide to our students. As an independent school parent, I would say that there is a big issue that even beyond parenting, but the parents should realize that a lot of the kids and parents are trying to psych out other parents, and I mean their goal is very limited to.
Hold on. When you say psych out, what do you? Let's define that.
That well, my kids are so smart, and the kids are even well, I made this test score and I hope that. What they don't say, I mean, my own daughter knew people, and I knew parents who had tutors showing up at their homes every day of Monday through Friday to help their kids with their homework, to sit with their kids when they did their homework. And they had another tutor to help them with tests. And it is changing the higher education landscape. I mean, certainly, I think one thing that parents can do when they don't have the resources to compete with that is to talk heavily with the counselors in the school. It is really hard in a public school situation to get a lot of attention, but if you're engaged, generally you will sort of get some of that feedback back. But a lot of the institutions of higher learning, and it's I think all the scandals that occurred right before COVID about people basically paying for someone to take tests for their kids. USC, where a lot of kids from Horace-Mann go, it was a big center. But all the top schools, all the Ivies, were a part of this. And where a lot of these schools are making SATs optional. And certainly despite the Supreme Court rulings, if the kids have a certain experience that's different from the norm of kids who have tutors, tutoring them in every aspect of the process, really just so that they can leapfrog above other kids and get into a school that their parents can brag about. It's not really necessarily about you just want the best for your kid and have the best opportunities and experience. They know now. I mean, the bloom is off the rose. So I think there's opportunities to opt out of those tests if you know that the kid who's been tutored since they were 3 or 4 years old is going to do better, but they're not necessarily going to be better students or better members of the academic community. The kids who actually really thrive are often the kids who haven't just been shot out of a cannon like little robots to get into certain schools, and but they don't know who they are once they get there.
And it goes back to your point, Gina. But let's hold on for 1 second. We're going to take a little more than 1 second. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere, and just growing up the way I grew up and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Operation Wonder Park is a go! There's nothing more powerful than imagination. But don't just imagine. Use STEM to change the world.
Who's with me?
It's gonna hurt tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
How prepared is your family if disaster shows up at your doorstep? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan before they show up. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes!
Make a plan today.
Welcome back to this final segment of Ignite, Empower, Transform. Okay, let's we close out.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Ginger mentioned with regards to schools being test optional in higher ed. As well, that's happening in our independent schools too. There are a lot of schools who are test optional, which creates more equity into this space. And the focus is not just on the test, and that being an indicator of your capacity for success.
But that also speaks to what you talked about earlier, in terms of just being a more well-rounded individual. Now that's finally going to have some merit in this type of situation, because now the kids that are solid kids that didn't just, like you said, just do the test prep, prepare for the exam, they're actually grounded and they have substance and they have experiences and they have leadership, and they'll be able to involve.
Our world is too complicated not to be, well balanced.
We want to see the best, Now, I want to pivot away from us and talk about HBCU grad.
Yes,
your
Howard.
family, HBCU grads. So there's an ongoing debate. What's best for our kids in the current climate? HBCU versus privately white institution. I went to Drake University. My sister went to Syracuse. I have a brother that went to Tuskegee, who you know is veterinarian. Another brother that went to Hampton, that's an architect, School Construction Authority. And we both have had, all of us have had wonderful experiences, but in today's climate, with the racial climate the way it is today, as we talked offline, over 30,000 people applied to Howard University. That's an amazing number.
That is
so
amazing.
there's an appreciation, a growing appreciation for HBCUs, especially the great ones. What are your thoughts? HBCU versus PWI.
I think that's a personal decision. I was not the parent who said, I'm only writing a check to Howard. I did not say that to my children. They ended up both in PWIs for college.
Which ones?
Brown, my daughter,
Oh, wow.
and my son is at Tufts.
Oh, wow.
My daughter just graduated from Brown.
Great schools.
But I will give you an example. I know why I wanted my children, particularly after going to PWIs K through 12. I just felt that they needed to move from being among the numerical minority or the most marginalized to being part of the mass, right? Of Black excellence. I felt like they needed that. So my son is pre-med. We're going to continue to pray on that. And I had an opportunity to participate in a fundraiser for Morehouse School of Medicine. And I said,
one of our producers here is from Morehouse, as you know.
Okay, yes, okay, yep.
Yeah.
And so I, purchased the tickets, and I said to Chaz, hey, listen, I just, put in some seed money for med school for you. And he's like, you know where I want to go. I want to go to NYU. And I'm like, okay, listen, Chaz, it could have even been an NYU fundraiser, and I donated. That would have been your seed money for that. But, just let that go. Let's go. So we went to the event after hearing the president of the School of Medicine, Morehouse School of Medicine speak, after hearing a panel of, a cardiologist who graduated from Morehouse Medical School, a recent intern, a current medical student, an MPH student, all talk about what that campus meant to them, how they felt, how it was one family. He tapped me on the shoulder and he said, Ma, I was like, I know.
Wow.
I know exactly what you're about to say.
How cool is that?
Right? So that changed his whole worldview of what, community looks like, and to be able to be in high achieving communities with people who look just like you.
Right.
Right. So I'm for HBCU. I'm for wherever it is you want to be. But what I don't want is for people to, second guess the level or the quality of education that you're going to get from an HBCU. Right. I mean, they're great institutions.
Yeah, that's off the table. I mean,
Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, my daughter attended a PW. I did too. But the doors were open. It was wherever it was going to be a big fit. But my entire family. I mean, I'm from Texas. My parents were segregation era. But they were proud. My parents, my grandparents, my grandfather, I'm sorry, my aunts and uncles all went to HBCUs. Very proud grads of a lot of these institutions that were great supportive community that produced excellence.
Oh, absolutely.
And my daughter did go to. We went down to I can't remember what they call it at Spelman, when the admitted students weekend. And one thing she said, and her reasons for not going did not have to do with the fact that it was an HBCU, but she said this school has the strongest school spirit and enthusiasm about their school of any other place I've ever seen, and that that almost the whole community went out of their way to embrace the entering students, and every Spelman woman I've ever met has been outstanding. So I think I'm happy that there's been this resurgence of our schools, because they've benefited our community so much, and a lot of our kids, given what's going on today, I think will really benefit from the experience if it's for them.
Right.
If it's for them.
Now, you shared a story with me, just briefly. Your daughter had a very unique experience, and I'd just like to...
She did. My daughter started out going to school in Scotland at the University of St. Andrews, the Prince William and Kate Middleton met. And it came out of an experience going abroad, but they had a particular program, and there were attributes of the school that her counselor suggested it, and she attended. She really liked it. She ended up transferring to a U.S. school during COVID, but that is actually an opportunity as well. There's some outstanding institutions outside of the U.S. that are actually cheaper than even some of our state institutions here.
Well, Gina and Ginger, we're not going to mess up the last names. I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Igniting Power Transform, and you shared some nuggets for our community, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Somewhere on the Hill, thanks you.
Yes.
Just so I can get the name.
And Rise too. Rise is Somewhere on the Hill. Yes, we are definitely here to support community and access to exceptional education.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. I was your host, Hosea James Givan II. And remember, if it's in your heart, do your part. Today's help equals tomorrow's hope. I love our youth. Power to the people.
Power to the people.